Okay, so let's talk very briefly. Now, I've had 4 hours sleep, and I was going to just relax and maybe start a new campaign on Medieval 2 Total War or something like that, but no, instead what we're going to do is have to talk about something that is just stupid to have to discuss. And this is pathetic, okay? So the mainstream media, and this was obviously seized upon by various Twitter social justice warriors, you know, the usual crowd, have produced hit pieces against Milo Yiannopoulos, claiming that he is pro-paedophilia. Now, Milo's put out a statement on his Facebook account. I'm not going to go through it, you can read it, I'll leave a link in the description. Obviously, he is denying that he is pro-paedophilia. And I'm sure that that's the case. I'm not going to try and explain how this has been taken out of context. There's no point. Let's just assume it is exactly as bad as he says. As everyone says. Not him, obviously. But let's assume that he is just pro-paedophilia. Let's just slow down and take a think and just have a think about what exactly we are doing here. Milo Yiannopoulos, whatever you think of him, is the victim of a child molester. When he was something like 13 years old, he was molested by a Catholic priest. Now, I don't want to say things that I don't know, but it seems like this is a key factor in Milo's sexuality, and I think that this obviously will have been a really major impact. This will have had a major impact on, I don't know how to say it exactly, on his frame of reference for this. I can only imagine that if I had been the person who'd been molested by a priest when I was 13, I would have a different worldview on this sort of thing as well, especially if I liked it, which Milo appears to have done. Now, I might be walking all of this back because I don't know that this is the case. This is just the impression that I have, so take it for what it's worth, but don't go around saying, oh my god, this is exactly how it is. I don't know, but this is just the impression I'm getting, and from my personal interactions with Milo, I've hung out with him, I've gone drinking with him before, I don't have a problem with him at all. In fact, I would consider us very friendly. But I think it definitely informs a lot of his behaviour. And I certainly think that his perception of this is not what a normal person's perception would be. Like, someone who wasn't molested by a priest and found themselves enjoying it wouldn't have the same perception as Milo. Now, there has been a remarkably uncharitable interpretation of all of this. And I'm just watching people making these strange statements as if I don't even know how to say it. I should have scripted this movie. Fuck it. So, first off, I don't think Milo wants to be a victim. I think that there's a certain kind of person who has a certain kind of character where they don't want to be classed as a victim. Being a victim is a negative thing. It means that you lost your agency. It means you had it taken away from you. That's destroying to some people. It would be destroying to me. I don't know how I would cope with that on an emotional level. And if you will forgive me a bit of pop psychology, I would suggest that perhaps Milo has internalized what happened to him as a way of gaining control over the situation in his own mind. So now he wasn't abused inappropriate. Well, obviously every abuse is inappropriate, but he wasn't abused by someone. He was also a participant in this sexual event. And that probably makes it easier to deal with. That probably makes him feel less like a victim. He probably needs to think that he wasn't actually the victim of this priest, and that he was actually someone who was a participant, a willing participant in certain ways. Now, again, I could be completely wrong, and I could be completely misreading this, but I'm not sure that I am, and this is the impression that I get. So when I see mainstream media pieces saying, well, look at this victim. Well, they don't say look at this victim, but they should say, look at this man. He is a victim of sexual assault, and he thinks that the sexual assault wasn't all that bad, and he thinks that 13-year-olds can consent. It's okay, well, that's his opinion, and he's welcome to it. And I think we can see why he has that opinion if we just stop treating him like he's Satan. If we treat him like he is a human being, and actually just think, right, if that were me, if it were you in that position, and you needed a way to cope with that, you would realise you'd probably end up with a distorted perception of what had happened as well. Anything Milo says on this subject is going to be heavily tainted by the events that happened to him earlier on in his life. That's just the fact of it. I do not think for a second he would be capable of being objective on that subject. And I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. I don't think for a second I would be able to disassociate myself from the events and analyse them objectively as if I was a robot. That's ridiculous. Jesus Christ. And so, after these hit pieces came out, if Milo, if you ever listen to this, I don't mean this in a condescending way, but I really do feel pity. I feel pity for anyone who went through that kind of event. I really do. I don't think I could denounce them. I was amusing watching, like, Spinosauruskin and a bunch of SJWs going, oh look, Sargon's being a hypocrite. Why? Because he won't denounce Milo, but he'd denounce an SJW. And I'm sat there thinking, I fucking wouldn't, mate. If an SJW it was like, I was abused when I was 12 or whatever, and suddenly I think child abuse is actually acceptable because, you know, I mean, I enjoyed it, and they had all this bluster, all of this stuff. I would be sat there thinking, well, that's a coping mechanism. I'm not going to condemn them for saying that. I mean, I could condemn someone like Sarah Nyberg because, as far as I'm aware, she's not been abused. As far as I'm aware, that person is a predator. But Milo, I don't think, is a predator. I think he is trying to cope with what happened to him. And he put out his statement on Facebook saying, look, he completely denounces paedophilia. I don't think he's the sort of man who thinks it's acceptable to molest children. And if anyone listening to this thinks that, you may as well just stop thinking altogether. You are being really biased out of your dislike for Milo, and it's easy to do that too. I can understand why so many people do that, because a lot of people do dislike Milo. They do dislike him on a visceral level because of the way he acts, and I think that a lot of his acting out for attention, it's obviously for attention, it probably is fueled by this. Maybe it's just because nothing bad happened to me that I can disassociate myself from that. And I can sit there and go, well, I mean, you know, I would be very, very worried if, I mean, I would be very careful, and I don't think I'd have the heart to condemn the victim of child molestation because they have a skewed perspective on child molestation. I just don't think I could do it. I think you'd have to be fucking heartless to do that. And yeah, you can bring me any SJW who's been molested and has a skewed view on child molestation, and I'm happy to, yeah, I think that person should be pitied, and we should be empathetic to them as well. Because there's never a bad time to stop fighting each other and actually care and take the time to go, you know what, I actually quite like this person, and I don't want to just treat them as my enemies would have me treat them. And okay, now, in fact, now I've mentioned that, we'll go on to the bit that really pisses me off, and this is the bit where, like, Spinosauruskin and, like, the teenage autists surrounding him are just, oh my god, you're fucking idiots. You are fucking idiots. Listen, this information is not new. Milo went on the Joe Rogan podcast like 6 months ago, however long ago, and said basically the same thing. It's not a secret. He's never kept it a secret, as far as I'm aware. And yet, you choose today, when the media narrative is being driven against Milo, to go on your little autistic crusades. Stop and ask yourselves why. You aren't doing it because suddenly you're like, right, Milo has to be stopped. I have a personal thing about paedophiles, and I always have, and I just have to attack them at every turn. Because if that were the case, you could be doing this all day, every day. There are pedos all over fucking Twitter, apparently. There's a pedo ring on YouTube, apparently. Apparently, Pizzagate actually has something to it. I mean, there are loads of leaks. I fucking keep up with it, and it's harrowing to watch some of the stuff that comes out. I mean, do you know who Laura Silsby is? Of course you fucking don't. Go and look her up on Wikipedia. You know, like the mainstream narrative on Laura Silsby. She spent time in jail for child trafficking from Haiti. She is connected intimately to Hillary Clinton. There might be something to that. You don't care. You're not interested. Because you're playing the political game. You are setting yourself in a political position. The enemy, the opponents, the SJWs, the people who act as a faction and don't fucking pretend they don't, are on the attack. I'm not going to let them win this argument. And I'll do it by not engaging. They demand, and I honestly, Kevin Logan tweeted me, so will you denounce Milo? No, Kevin, because I won't do anything you want. Do you understand? I do not dance to your tune, and I do not care if you will then run around the internet and claim that I'm immoral or a hypocrite or anything like that. It's irrelevant what you say, because there is nothing that will come from you that will have any kind of charity. There is nothing that will come from you and yours that will be honest or fair or accurate. Unbelievably, Spino, stop playing their fucking game. They are your enemy, you fucking idiots. If they say, right, you need to come along and denounce this because look at this, we're angry about this, you just sit back. You smile at them. You roll yourself a cigarette, as I'm doing. You light it and take a puff. Then you tell them to fuck off. You'll do what you want, when you want. They don't get to tell you or demand anything of you because they are scum. They are liars. They are constantly lying and misrepresenting and defaming me and you and fuck the noise coming out from outside. Sorry about that. And anyone else that you know and care about because you are a political opponent of theirs. You don't play into their game. It doesn't matter what they're saying. It just doesn't matter. You only play their game if you think you can win. And unfortunately, accusations of supporting paedophilia and throwing these kind of slanderous and defamatory statements around, regardless of whether they're true or false, when it comes to this sort of thing, it's not even accusations of paedophilia. It's accusations of supporting paedophilia, or not, as the case may be. These aren't. It's not a crime to support paedophilia. It's disgusting, but it's not a crime. Anyone's allowed the opinions they want. And then we come to the justification. Well, you won't denounce it when Milo thinks it, but you'd denounce it when SJW thinks it. Really? Really? Is that... I mean, could you think of anything more stupid to say at that given moment? I don't think there is anything more stupid to say. This is like hearing from a child. If someone approaches you and is so uncharitable and is operating in such bad faith as to expect that there might be a chance you won't denounce child molestation, you do not engage with that person. You tell that person that you reject the premise entirely. Anyone with an ounce of integrity would not request someone else to denounce a paedophile unless there was a good reason to do it. Unless you had strong suspicions that that person actually did endorse paedophilia. For a person to ask another person, look, someone else has got weird opinions on paedophilia, and it might well stem from their own abuse prior in their history, so you're going to now have to denounce that person, because otherwise I'm going to suggest you're not against paedophilia, is the most intellectually dishonest and uncharitable thing I can imagine. You reject what they have said outright because it is simply not worth engaging with them. You don't sit there and go, oh yeah, I'm going to show how virtuous I am. This is why I'm calling you a virtue signaler, Spino, because you fucking are. I don't need to show that I'm against paedophilia, and I don't need to do any of these things, and if you think I do, then you can just unfollow me. I don't need you supporting me. I don't need any of this. And what's worse is that this is now, all of our Twitter's feeds is just spammed up with this stupid argument about a damaged human being and their damaged interpretation, brought about as a political attack by his opponents based on fucking something that happened months and months ago, that, to be fair, is probably been taken out of context. And he has already come out with a statement categorically denying it, saying that no, this was misrepresenting me, I don't believe that, and even if he did believe that, I think he should have the luxury of changing his opinion. This is such horseshit. Spino, stop getting baited by them. For the love of God, man. And I'm saying this as someone who likes you. I consider myself someone who's friendly to you. I like what you do. I think what you do is important. I think you're an intelligent young man, and I honestly think you have a good future in what you're doing. You're doing very well for someone of your age. You've got potential. You can go places, but you have to learn how to get yourself under control. You have to know when the right time is. Unfortunately, this is a political war. This is a culture war. And you do not need to explain your principles to everyone at every given time, because you know what your principles are. Regardless of what they say, that won't change that. All that will do is misrepresent you. And at any time you have the luxury of making a video, like I'm doing now, to your followers and explaining that to anyone who wants to hear, to anyone who wants to know what you actually think. You don't dance to their tune. They're not doing anything that benefits you. Everything that they say and do is to your detriment. You must remember that. Nobody is questioning your virtue. You don't need to display it.